resolution. Mr. President, I thank the chair and yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from West Virginia is recognized.
First of all, I want to thank my colleague, Senator Ken Conrad from North Dakota. To say he's going to be missed is an understatement as he goes back into the private sector with his beautiful wife and family. But his steadfast commitment to this country to put our financial house back in order is the direction this country should be going, and we should have the courage to do that. I believe we will with his leadership, because he has laid out a plan that's most reasonable. There's been more bipartisan support for a longer period of time, and it's grown. It's the only plan since I've been here, less than 2 years, that has maintained that bipartisan support because of the leadership of Senator Ken Conrad. On behalf of the grateful state of West Virginia and the people of America and my colleagues here in the Senate, we thank you, sir. We thank you for your leadership. Mr. President, I have 6 unanimous consent requests for committees to meet during today's session of the Senate. They have the approval of the majority and minority leaders, and I ask unanimous consent that these requests be agreed to and these requests be printed in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I rise today to share with you the deep concerns that I am hearing from my constituents all across the great state of West Virginia, who are worried about what will happen to their rural communities if their local post offices are forced to shut their doors. In our state, we know that the Postal Service is at the very core of what makes this country great and what connects us all. In fact, Mr. President, the Postal Service is America. And that is why we are willing to come together across party lines to fight hard to preserve the essential services that the Postal Service provides. We also know that serving rural communities isn't always profitable, and private companies won't come in to fill the gap if the Postal Service leaves. As Americans, we need our rural communities to stay in touch with the rest of this great nation. And I am fighting along with the members of our delegation to put a stop to these proposed closures. These concerns for the future of the Postal Service are bringing all West Virginians, Democrats and Republicans alike, together for protest, rallies, and letter-writing campaigns. In communities where people were told their post offices down the road might be closed, I'm hearing people's fears of unacceptable consequences. Seniors who couldn't be able to get their medicines delivered, problems receiving important checks and other financial services, and, just as importantly, the loss of the ability to stay connected to the community and to the country as a whole. This note comes from Mr. George Jones in Nebo, West Virginia, which is in Clay County. He writes, "Few people in this area have access to the Internet. They still rely on the post offices to keep them connected to the world. And our people still use the post office. It just makes no sense to cut services to the people who still not only use them but need them." In communities where the post office is already closed, I've heard about what is meant to the town, what it means to the town and its residents. This note comes from Dolores Wilson in Norton, West Virginia, which is in Randolph County. Our post office was closed last November. We now have cluster boxes which are out there in the weather, and our residents are scared to have their prescription drugs mailed to their home or these boxes. Our community has been severely affected. We used to see each other while getting our mail. Our postmaster kept us connected, would let us know when children were born and neighbors passed away. We collected funds on the post office to help our neighbors when they fell on hard times or were in need. Now we don't have this central location to do that because our community, our small community, no longer has its post office. Mr. President, I've always said that we as a people and a country need to pick our priorities based on our values. And in West Virginia, keeping the Postal Service intact is one of the things our people truly care about. That is why I've raised very serious concerns about this bill that will close and does nothing to keep the 3,700 post offices open, and they're currently on the list for potential closure, including 150 of these proposed closures in West Virginia. So today I would like to encourage all of my colleagues, Mr. President, to vote for an amendment I have offered that would prohibit any postal facility from being closed for 2 years. while the Postal Service figures out better ways, working with the Postal Service unions to get their financial house in order. I have offered this amendment because, as I have heard from my constituents, we simply cannot afford to let these facilities close in the communities that need them most. In our rural towns, places like Norton and Nebo, West Virginia, the Postal Service is about much more than a place to send and receive mail. Our postal facilities are the centerpieces of our communities. They are places where people gather and share important information. And they are a symbol of the importance of our small towns to the people whose families have always been there. They are our little place on the map. This note came from Deanna Halstead from Boone County, where the Uneeda post office could soon be closed. She writes, "We've had a post office in this area since 1902. In fact, the story goes that the citizens petitioned for a post office and were asked what to name it back in 1902. A gentleman saw a can of Nabisco's Uneeda biscuits, and that's how the post office and town got their name. It would be a shame to lose that history, and it would be hard for our elderly and disabled citizens to travel farther for these services. 15 miles does not sound like much to people in Washington, D.C., but when you rely on public transportation or a neighbor to take you, it becomes a big burden. I myself grew up in the small town of Farmington, West Virginia, a community of just a few hundred people, and I speak from experience when I say the post offices in these rural communities serve as a critical lifeline. Even now, as an elected representative, I receive dozens, sometimes hundreds of letters a day from my constituents, many of whom don't have access to the Internet and can only reach me by writing me a letter. That is why it is so unique. That is what is so unique about our post offices. They are a vital link for West Virginians and many others throughout the country. And for them, it is so important that their mail service remain uncompromised. We all know that the U.S. Postal Service is in dire straits. The combination of the recent recession, the increased use of email and text messages, and the cost of retiree health benefits have put the Postal Service on a path of financial ruin. In order to remain solvent, the United States Post Office must cut costs by $20 billion by 2015. Now, anyone who's heard me speak before knows that I share a deep commitment to fiscal responsibility, and we've just heard our dear friend, Senator Conrad, lay it out for us. And that, I truly believe that this nation's out-of-control finances are the biggest threat we face. I'm not alone. At a Senate Armed Services Committee hearing a year ago, the then chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen, was asked his opinion on the greatest threat to our national security. Coming from the Defense Department and the person in charge, Admiral Mullen, I would have thought that he would have said something about all the turmoil around the world, the wars that are going on, the uneasiness and unrest that could contribute to more wars. I thought he would tell us about some rising military power that we should be concerned of, another uprising of a violent attack on this country, or a terrorist group wishing to do us harm. But what he said was very simple, and it was a defining moment as me as a United States Senator when he said, our national debt is the greatest threat this nation is concerned about. It's the greatest threat this nation faces. It was a sobering moment. So believe me, Mr. President, when I say that I truly believe that we all have to set our priorities based on our values and learn very quickly to live within our means, that is right. There is a right way and a wrong way to go about this. Mr. President, the bill that we have before us would propose to close 3,700 rural post offices, I'm sure many in your own state, for a total savings of $200 million, a figure that is less than 1% of the Postal Service's $20 billion and is roughly equivalent, listen to this figure, it is roughly equivalent to the amount that we spend in one day in the Afghanistan war. We spend that amount in one day fighting in Afghanistan, which I think everyone knows I'm totally opposed to. One day. And we're going to close 3,700 post offices for that one-day savings of a war in Afghanistan, while achieving very little in terms of the Postal Service's bottom line. This proposal would have an enormous impact on people all over the United States of America, including the people in West Virginia that would lose up to 150 of their post offices. This bill would also lower delivery standards by allowing the Postal Service to go to 5-day service and eliminating door delivery. And it would add to our national deficit. In short, I am not sure what exactly we are hoping to accomplish with this piece of legislation. Already in West Virginia, we know for certain that 3 of our mail processing facilities will be closing, 1 in Clarksburg, 1 in Parkersburg, and 1 in Petersburg. We still don't know the fate of our facility in Bluefield. The impact those closures will have on the Postal Service's bottom line is minimal, but the impact to those communities is widely felt and deep. Rather than making drastic cuts on the front lines, the Postal Service needs to consider a different approach to getting their financial house in order. I truly believe that we can save the Postal Service without making cuts to the services our communities rely on and the lifeline that they are and are needed, and without adding to our enormous deficit. We can work together on a way to keep our postal facilities open, expand services that raise revenue, eliminate enormous bonuses for executives, and sustain 6-day-a-week delivery service. My colleagues and I have suggested many common sense ideas that could help solve the problem. For one, current law caps pay for Postal Service executives at $199,700, the rate of pay for most cabinet-level secretaries. But provisions in the law allow for bonuses and other compensation to increase total take-home pay for these executives to $276,840. That figure is 20% higher than the Vice President of the United States' salary. In addition, the Congressional Research Service has noted that postal executives may be eligible for deferred annual incentive bonuses that exceed existing caps, the payment of which can be deferred until after he or she leaves the Postal Services. As an example, Mr. President, according to CRS, former Postmaster General John Potter earned $501,384 in total compensation in fiscal year 2010. I think most Americans would be shocked to know that the Postal Service executives can earn larger salaries in the form of bonuses and deferred compensation than cabinet-level secretaries. These excesses must be eliminated. We know from an August 2011 report by the Postal Service Inspector General that the Postal Service maintains 67 million square feet of excess interior space, and that getting rid of this unneeded real estate could net $3.4 billion over 10 years. I think this is a revenue raiser that deserves some serious consideration. I think most of my colleagues would think the same. I would also ask, during a time when finances are tight, why did the Postal Service spend advertising dollars sponsoring the U.S. Tour de France team? And they're now sponsoring a NASCAR racing team, which I love NASCAR racing, but I'm not sure they can afford to be sponsoring a team. Mr. President, there are a variety of ways for the Postal Services to get its financial house in order without closing their doors in the communities that rely on them most. Back in April, my office coordinated regional open meetings in the communities whose past offices are on a list for potential closures. Along with representatives from the U.S. Postal Service, my staff was on hand at these meetings in McDowell, Raleigh, Wood, and Randolph counties to give local residents the opportunity to share their creative proposals and common sense ideas to help preserve post offices in their communities. We got the message loud and clear. West Virginians do not want to see their post offices closed. They are the lifeblood of the community. And we continue to hear from hundreds of West Virginians in letters, phone calls, and petitions. Folks like Rebecca from Raleigh County, where the Clear Creek Post Office is facing closure. Her community has had a post office for 140 years. 140 years. Tell me anything that's more American than that. Here's her letter. We are an isolated area, she says. The roads are curvy and our citizens are elderly. If this post office closes, it will mean 20 miles round trip to the nearest post office. Mr. President, it's a rare thing to see a community, hundreds of communities, really come together around a single issue like this one. But we are seeing hundreds and hundreds of people rush to the defense of an institution that has built this nation and connected this nation of who we are today. West Virginians do not want to see that disappear, and neither do I, sir. That is why I will fight, along with my colleagues, to find a solution that forces the Postal Services to get its financial house in order, which I believe can be done, without balancing its books on the back of our rural communities and the people who depend on that lifeline most, our citizens. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor. Mr. President, I note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Falco. Mr. President,
The senator from Oregon is recognized.
Mr. President, I ask that the quorum call be set aside.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to address an issue that goes to the very heart of our rural communities, our rural post offices. Now, I'm speaking today while negotiations are going on regarding the post office reform bill that has many dimensions to it, attempting to put the post office on stable financial ground. But I want to focus on this particular aspect, that today we must modify the bill that is before us so that we do not end up destroying our rural post offices that are at the heart of the communities that they serve. It was a few months ago that I was out in eastern Oregon, and I got a message that the Postmaster General had put on the list for closure 41 rural community post offices. And that was just in my state of Oregon. In the next couple of days, dropped by several of those rural community post offices. I talked in 2 cases. They were open. I talked to the postmaster. I talked to citizens who were nearby. And I quickly got feedback on the destruction that would happen in that rural community if we don't address this in this bill. Specifically, there will be a huge impact on the small businesses that use the post offices to receive orders and to ship orders on a daily basis. Those businesses will not be able to function if they have to drive 30, 40, 50, 60 miles round trip each day to pick up orders and to ship products. Huge waste of time, often on dangerous, windy, narrow roads, a huge additional cost, a huge distraction from the work that they do on their farms or on their ranches. In short, this will shut down a lot of small businesses, or those small businesses will have to move. They'll move to larger towns. And when they move, the retail dollars move. Won't be long before that small store at the heart of that town shuts down. And in addition, I heard from seniors who receive their medicines through the mail. And in some cases, they're controlled medicines that they have to sign for. They have to be there in person. They can't simply receive them through a mailbox, if you will. They certainly are often, that is, our seniors, not always in the shape that they can drive daily to see if a medicine that they're waiting for has arrived, that they would have to go 40, 50, 60 miles round trip to check and see, did their medicines come in? Those folks start thinking about, well, maybe I can't live in this rural community anymore. Maybe I need to move to a larger town that has a post office. Part of the irony of the bill we have before us is that we are often here on the floor talking about spending government resources for economic development. Well, if you go to a small town and you ask them what is the most essential component for the success of their small town, for their small businesses, they're going to tell you the rural post office. That without that, they're pretty much out of business. So how is it we spend so much time here talking about jobs and economic development and small businesses as the factory of job creation, and yet we have a bill before us that basically cuts the heart out of the small town economy? Now, I originally come from a very small town of Myrtle Creek. When I was a small child born there, it was the Dairy Queen at the heart of town was the place we occasionally went as a family. And that Dairy Queen is still there. And I still often drive through Myrtle Creek just to go by and have a hamburger there as I'm going north and south through Oregon. Now, Myrtle Creek doesn't happen to be on the list of the 41 towns where the post office would be shut down. But a visit to my hometown, and you'd get a real sense of the damage that would occur if the post offices were shut down. So I bring a very kind of personal sense that this battle matters. So I wanted to share today some of the feedback I've had from a couple of towns, and I want to start with the town of Tiller in Douglas County. Now, Tiller is not that far away. Myrtle Creek's in Douglas County. Roseburg's in Douglas County, where I started grade school. Tiller's in Douglas County. And this is, I'm going to move this chart over a little bit. This is the post office in Tiller. Now, it's 16 miles from the next nearest post office. So imagine that you live 10 miles from Tiller, and then you have to drive another 16 miles to get to the next nearest town. Now you're talking about 50 miles round trip. That's an hour or more out of your day, and that is a lot of cost in gas. That might be 10 bucks a day in gas right there. And that is a huge, huge factor for many of our families. I'm going to share with you some passages from a letter from Diana Ferris, a former postmaster in Tiller. She writes, and I quote, "Tiller is one such community where, in many ways, time stands still and new technology is beyond reach. In Tiller, cellular phone service is unavailable. DSL and cable internet service are unavailable. Satellite service is overpriced, with the majority of the residents in the area unable to afford it, and there is no Wi-Fi access." She continues, "Dial-up internet is available when the poorly maintained telephone system is operational, but only at top speeds of approximately 24 to 26 kilobytes. So slow that many websites, including the United States Postal Service, time out before you can access the needed information." And Diana Ferris, former postmaster, then says, "The unemployment rate has risen to 13% in Douglas County. The lowest gas price in Tiller in the last few months has been $3.95 per gallon. For communities like this," she concludes, "the local post office remains the only option." Now, many folks here in the Senate may really think in terms of big cities that they represent, that have many, many options, that have FedEx, that have all forms of electronic communication. They have all kinds of alternatives. But you know, those alternatives, as Diana points out, the former postmaster points out, aren't options that you have in a small town. And indeed, one of my colleagues said, "I don't understand why you're so concerned, because FedEx can deliver the medicines." Well, if you've been to a small town, you would find out that FedEx uses the post office system to complete the last mile of their deliveries. So no, FedEx does not provide an answer for our veterans, for our seniors, for others who need medicines or other products being delivered through the mail. Because of that difficult drive from Tiller to the next post office, because of the time, because of the distance, the closing of the Tiller post office would have a devastating impact on the small businesses that rely on the U.S. Postal Service. Here is a letter from Alexandra Petrowski, who owns a small business. It's called Singing Falls Mohair. She owns a business with her husband, lives in Tiller, and she writes, "We utilize the services of the U.S. Post Office extensively. I would estimate," she's continuing, "I would estimate that between 3 and 5 packages go out from our home to destinations all over the world on a daily basis. We sell our product on eBay, and the business is flourishing. Our growing market is worldwide, using the U.S. mail system every day of the week, excluding Sundays. In the eBay marketplace, timely mailing is an integral part of good customer service." Alexandra continues, "As it is, the Tiller Post Office is 7 miles from our mountain ranch. The closure of the Tiller Post Office would require an approximately 45-mile round-trip journey that would severely impact our modest profit margin." She concludes, "We have been engaged in this business for 30-plus years. We are seniors and rely extensively on our cottage industry to sustain our ranch operation. Would closing Tiller's post office mean effectively an end to the home business? Then she answers her own question. The answer at this point in time is that it would seriously jeopardize our business. So here is a family living on a ranch quite a ways outside of Tiller, but Tiller is the closest place. Would have to drive into Tiller, then drive this additional 16 miles to the next post office. Would have to do this on a daily basis to ship products. They are fortunate to have internet and have been able to advertise and have the world see their products and advertise them through eBay, but they get customer ratings on eBay. If you've ever been on eBay, you'll see that people who have these small businesses establish online reputations because they're judged by each of their customers. They're rated by each of their customers. And you feel pretty comfortable ordering from someone who, say, has shipped 500 orders and has a 5-star rating. Not that comfortable ordering from someone who has a 3-star rating, who customer after customer has said the product doesn't come in a timely manner, or it's not packaged well, it's not shipped well. And so this model, the sustained small business, completely depends on the U.S. Postal Service serving that small community. Well, let me turn to Malheur County, a different part of the state, and the town of Juntura. I'll get a picture of the Juntura post office before you. You'll see it's quite a simple looking structure, a manufactured building, not very expensive to build, certainly not very expensive to have it open a couple hours a day. So we are talking about microscopic costs in the context of postal reform that have a monumental impact on the success of our small communities. Low cost, high impact. Isn't that the type of deal that we argue for every day? Government efficiency. Low cost, high impact. Well, this little simple modular building, a few wooden steps going up to the door, may not look like much, but it is a shipping hub and a communications hub that makes the economy work in Juntura, Oregon. I have a report from a Juntura resident named Laura Williams, and she went into a comprehensive analysis of the impact of this very modest building. She wrote up a 42-page report, and it examines every aspect of how this very inexpensive investment, the returns it has for the community. So I thought I'd read to all of you a little bit from that report. She writes that the residents of Juntura, quote, will either have to drive to Druzy to the west to mail packages, to buy money orders, and to complete a variety of other transactions, or they'll have to drive east to Harper, 34 miles away, a route that winds through a river canyon dangerously choked with deer during the winter months. That's the end of that first part of her passage. When I looked at her report, she actually compiled numbers of the number of collisions per week with deer on this road as you drive from Juntura to Druzy. And I was astounded by the high rate. It was a rate of several collisions a week. Now, I remember when I was a kid, small child, and we'd be driving the rural roads in Douglas County, and my parents would say, we got to watch for deer. You know, if you have a deer come through your windshield, you can be pretty much toast if you're traveling at any substantial speed. If you're on a motorcycle and you go around a curve and you hit a deer, the deer is going to do a lot of damage. So it may not sound like something that folks who come from cities really understand, but driving round trip, in this case to Harper, 34 miles away, so a 70-mile round trip through a road that's dangerous in dangerous weather conditions, dangerous because of deer, certainly an enormous waste of time, an enormous waste of fuel, doesn't make any sense. Well, she continues. So again, this is a letter or analysis from Laura Williams in Juntura. She continues, quote, "In essence, Juntura is between a rock and a hard place." Now, she then analyzes that 25% of Juntura's post office users are seniors who would be particularly impacted by these changes, as they rely heavily on the Postal Service to receive medication and may have difficulty driving long distances in hazardous conditions. On her report, she put just one word in bold on the front page, and it sums up her analysis of the impact of closing this humble post office. And that word is disastrous. Disastrous for the seniors. Disastrous for the veterans. Disastrous for the small businesses. Disastrous for the sense of community that uses this as a place to connect with each other. Now, 2 weeks ago, when we were on in-state work period, I visited Fort Klamath, which is also on the list to be closed. Residents converged on the post office when I came. They wanted to share their stories, and I want to share several of those with you now. The first comments are from Jeanette and Bob Evans. Bob is a veteran. He receives medication through the mail that often needs to be scanned and signed for, and they would have to make a 30-mile trip to pick up medications if Fort Klamath Post Office closes. So they feel the impact in that manner. And they might make that trip and find out the medicines hadn't arrived yet. So they might have to make multiple trips. They also have a rental business that must follow state law, which requires many documents be sent via first-class U.S. mail in order to verify the date of notification. Again, closure of Fort Klamath will force them to take more 30-mile trips to Chiloquin to process this mail correctly. So here's a community that's of modest size, a couple hundred families. It's a beautiful area. It has a lot of residences that are rented out in the summer. They have to send documents back and forth with those who are renting. Those folks need to have timely service or they're not going to come to the town. Also, once they arrive, and this point was made by several residents to me, once the summer renters arrive, so this is driving the economy of the town, those summer renters want to be able to mail their letters. They want to be able to receive their packages. So that post office, I don't have a picture of Fort Klamath here, but that little post office, that's essential to the summer visitors. And you lose the post office, then that takes away not only from the business of running out the summer residences, but from the number of folks who feel like, well, they'll come there to spend their vacation. Heidi McLean came, and she is the proprietor of the Aspen Inn that operates seasonally. Heidi uses the post office daily to set out information packages to everyone interested in staying with them. So once they get word that someone's interested, here's all the details. Those have to be received on a timely basis because otherwise the customer says, you know what, I got this package from someone else, somewhere else, and that's where I'm going to go for my summer vacation. And then they sign up and Heidi's package arrives a few days later, and Heidi's lost the business. Heidi says they could get by with partial days, but they feel strongly they need access to a local post office, and that a round trip to Chiloquin to access mail would be a serious problem for their small business. Now, currently, several of my colleagues have worked to put together a process in the manager's amendment, and they've been working hard on this, and I applaud them for taking a step forward from the basic bill. I want to thank them for their hard work, the hard work that Tom Carper has been doing, Senator Carper from Delaware has been doing, the hard work that Senator Lieberman from Connecticut has been doing. And they have both indicated a willingness to continue working to try to make sure that we do not destroy our rural communities by shutting down post offices. And so we're continuing that conversation. We have, a group of us have an amendment. Right now, Senator McCaskill is the lead on it. Many folks are involved. Senator Tester is involved. Senator Baucus is involved. Senator Leahy is involved. I don't have the full list in front of me, but I thank all of them because they all understand this basic notion of little money, huge impact, is the type of solution that we should be driving through this chamber. Now, currently, the plan in the manager's amendment, again, it's a step forward. Not quite a step far enough, but it's a step forward. Let me explain. It says that the post office will set out a series of service standards, that they'll design a series of service standards, and they'll design a procedure, and that essentially, before they close a post office, they will have to do an analysis of whether this closing the post office meets the service, the retail service standards that they've laid out. And that after they announce the decision, that there will be an opportunity for the decision to be appealed. And that appeal will go to the Postal Review Commission, the PRC. And the PRC will evaluate whether they met their own service standards, and they will evaluate whether the procedures were followed. And if they were not, then the PRC can say to the post office, you must go back and look at this again. Now, it sounds like a system that has some routine to it. Why is that not sufficient to protect our rural post offices? Well, let me put it very simply. The post office management is trying to save money. So if they set service standards, those service standards are going to be set in a manner that allow many of our small towns to be shut down, many of our post offices to be shut down. The same reason they put a list of 41. And let me put up Tiller again. We've got Juntura. Let's put up the picture of Tiller. 41 of these small-town post offices. The post office already said from their internal review of their sense of their responsibilities, their service standards, that they want to shut down 41 of these. Well, after a lot of protest, we got a 6-month delay, and I'm very thankful that we got that. The Postmaster General also said that, well, maybe not 41. For now, we'll take 20 of them off the list, and then he took one more off the list, so we're down to 20 in Oregon. But the others could be added back at any time. So 41 of these small towns, the post office has already said that they want to shut down 41 based on their understanding of their service responsibilities. So a process that we put into statute that simply says, will you be a little more clear in writing about your service standards or your procedures, is just window dressing. So what we need is for us, the U.S. Senate, to say, here are service standards for delivering medical supplies to our seniors and veterans and other families. Here are standards for communities that do not have all the electronic communications that our big towns have. Here is a standard for supporting the small businesses in these communities. We need to set those standards, because it is us on this floor who have been elected to fight for the people of the United States of America. The post office, they're trying to balance their budget. That's why they said, well, we think it's okay to shut down these 41. Now, the amendment that Senator McCaskill and Senator Tester, Senator Baucus, Senator Leahy, and a number of us have put forward is completely compatible with the general vision of having an appeal process with the Postal Review Commission. But it gives the Postal Review Commission an actual standard by which to make a decision. Otherwise, all the post office has to say is, yes, we considered the issue. And that words "we" to consider are right in the current amendment, manager's amendment, not the amendment we're putting forward. And so it isn't enough for the post office to say, yes, we considered the fact that it does affect small businesses, like the Mohair Company that I described earlier. It's not enough to say they considered it. There has to be a standard of service that we on this body are comfortable with in defending the commerce in small towns, in defending the commerce for small businesses. So I really appreciate the work that Senator Collins and Senator Carper and Senator Lieberman are doing, that they're engaged in this dialogue about defending our small towns. I know that, that they understand the impact that would occur. And maybe it's an impact that in some states hits harder than others. It certainly hits hard in Oregon. So I look forward to continuing to work with our sponsors of this amendment led by Senator McCaskill, to work with the floor leaders on this bill, because we must not pass through here. We must not pass through this chamber a bill that would carve the heart, both the economy and the communications, out of rural America. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President,
Senator from Oregon is
I
recognized.
note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Acosta.